Matthew Allen Livelsberger. Investigations revealed Special Forces active duty soldier on leave suffered from severe PTSD. What did this incident tell us?
There are a lot of parallels here to things that we've seen all over the country. The need to work with our veteran community and our first responder community. When you have a person that has severe PTSD, and you add in paranoid delusion, we have a powder keg here. They're completely out of touch with reality, more so than the PTSD alone causes.
Today on Bets and Badges, we're going to take a look at what is PTSD struggle, what does it look like, and how can we combat it. I am Robert Asensio, and with me is my colleague, co-host, retired police chief, and military historian, David Magnuson.
Happy New Year, Robert.
And to you, brother.
This is such an important topic. I mean, the whole year started off with such major news stories, but as the smoke lifts, so to speak, this story in particular is incredibly important because this is going to help people too with the information they're going to get.
God willing.
Yeah.
And to discuss this topic, we couldn't think of a better person to bring on the show than Benjamin Thomas Iobst. He is a PhD level organizational and development psychologist. He is a combat veteran who was a sniper during the worst period in Iraq, in Ramadi. Following the military, he joins the police force, the Allentown Police Department, where he retired. So he has seen combat in country and abroad. But here's a man who has not only confronted demons, he has challenged them. And now he serves our community of first responders and military veterans.
Hey, gentlemen, how are you guys doing today? Happy New Year.
What did this incident tell us?
We don't know very much about what happened here with this gentleman. I think we're going to continue to find things out over the next couple of weeks. But there are a lot of parallels here to things that we've seen all over the country. And the need to really begin to work, make a concerted effort to work with our veteran community and our first responder community on their stress, on post-traumatic stress. There's been a lot of movements towards the positive side of this, really getting involved in helping veterans and first responders work on post-traumatic growth, which is really changing the perspective of that post-traumatic stress and helping them see that they can grow from it.
I'm sorry, Ben, let's go there in a minute because I want to frame this up. You were in combat, man. You were a sniper at a very, very critical time when our soldiers were being ambushed by insurgents in Iraq. And then you and your team members were responsible for protecting them and saving their lives. And that puts you in immense danger and in situations that, let's face it, no human being should ever experience.
When I got out and I came home, it began to really set in that what we had experienced in Ramadi was not, war's war, but it was the more intense version of it. For a long time, I kind of had the attitude of grit. I was just going to keep pushing on. If I ignore the pain, I will do okay because I can tough these things out. And that's what got me through my military career. That's what, most infantry, combat arms, special operations, a lot of police officers, first responders, we view grit as essential. And it really is to get us through things in those day-to-day operations. But it eventually wears out and you wear down. And that was what's happening to me. I got home from the war, became a police officer in short order, and was just pushing, completely mentally exhausted and pushing. And the end result, things snuck up on me. First, a lot of drinking, and I was doing it to self-medicate. I didn't drink at work or anything like that, but anytime I wasn't working, I was self-medicating with alcohol.
What you said a minute ago, you didn't know it while you were there until you got out of it. It's like when you're flying, you're in those clouds. You don't know what the heck's going on. It's once you get out of the clouds, then you can see, Jesus, what a storm that was. And you're bouncing around, and it's sneaking up on you. When it sneaks up on you, there's no way to defend against it, really.
Yeah,
Right?
and jumping a little, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And jumping a little bit ahead, like when you add or the compounded pressures of day to day life. And in Matthew's
That's right.
case, we've since the investigation has since revealed, or what has been made public has revealed, he had one prior divorce.
Mhm.
He had multiple deployments between that divorce and his current marriage, which right before he committed suicide,
Yeah.
they had
She
they
threw
had
him out of the house.
yeah, she threw him out of the house
Day after Christmas. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
but he had also suffered from a traumatic brain injury
Mhm.
in 2017 during the 2019, excuse me, during the deployment, if I'm not mistaken. But point being is that there were a lot of pressures from the day-to-day life. Ben, I know you've also experienced some of that.
Absolutely.
And how do you work through that?
So I guess I should disclose, I have a TBI as well, traumatic brain injury as well, from being hit by many IEDs over my time in Iraq. And, the best way I can describe it is, we are changed from what happened to us. And it's essential that we do as many healthy things as we can possibly do. Because whatever unhealthy things we do, they're going to be magnified and amplified. And I know in my case, the drinking was just the tip of the iceberg. Then it started with isolation. The drinking caused my brain chemistry, which was already messed up from the TBI and the PTSD, to be more off balance. Then the isolation starts, then the paranoia starts. And the next thing you know, you're completely out of touch with reality.
Let's talk about the out of touch with reality, because I know that in police work, we've seen that too. I mean, I know from veteran, my experience with the special ops community, being a member, and then also in police work, we know that some of our colleagues were detached from a portion of reality.
Yeah, and it seems like Ben said, it's a step by step. Drinking's usually the main thing with the policing, and then it goes into that isolation, and it's just you're going down the basement step by step until you're already on the bottom floor. And like we talked about in other episodes, to get that person to help, to stand up, you see something, say something in regards to your fellow officer, fellow service,
Let's
soldier,
take
Marine.
a closer look at the person, right?
Right.
Let's take a closer look at what it's doing to the person, the victim.
Uh-huh.
How did you feel? I mean, did you understand that you were, suffering?
I knew something was wrong, and I wanted to be quote unquote fixed. And that goes into, again, the desperation that we're seeing in a lot of veterans now that are willing to do treatments which really may not be scientifically based, but they're desperate. You want to fix what's going on here. And what I've found is the fix is connection with other people who have been through these things, and good, solid, evidence-based treatment on the psychology and psychiatry realm. But you become very desperate, and you're willing to do just about anything to try to fix the pain or stop the pain. And again, and sadly, that's why we see suicide being so high, because the pain, we view that the pain needs to be stopped, and that is a way to, stop pain. But it is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. We can work our way through these things by taking time, energy, and education. And that's why I'm very, very, one of the things that I can impart to the veteran and first responder community is being very careful with some of the treatments that are being talked about out there. There's a lot of real good scientific stuff. There's a lot of really good, great programs out there. But some of these newer programs that they're beginning to roll out, psychedelic treatment for PTSD, microdosing, bear in mind that can cause paranoid delusion. And when you have a person that has severe PTSD, and you add in paranoid delusion, we have a powder keg here. They're completely out of touch with reality, and more so than the PTSD alone causes. And again, in these situations, the last 2 attacks or incidents that have happened around the country. I don't know. I have no facts that it's related to the use of psychedelics, but I do see a correlation that in the past year, there's been a lot of talk about psychedelics being the magic treatment for PTSD. When studies in the 60s and 70s have shown and were proven that in a good chunk of veterans, it does cause paranoid delusion. And now we see this again, where it's being talked about. Guys are out there experimenting with it. And now we're seeing veterans becoming extremely paranoid, having delusions, and doing these acts. So I see a correlation there.
And I know all of us experience some level of paranoia. But can you share with us what that's like and put it in context to if you get in the wrong treatment, boy, you can be in a hell of a lot of trouble.
Oh, yeah. So PTSD and TBI either could cause severe paranoia. And now you have both in this situation. That's proven, that we know, that this gentleman, while a hero, had severe PTSD and a TBI from his service. And what that does is that will take, a lot of times these individuals are still able to do their jobs, right? They can show up, they can armor up, they can suit up, and they can do their muscle memory jobs. It's that free time, that isolated time, that time that we're not operational, that the mind wanders, and it starts to connect things that normally would not connect. For example, say you have a delivery driver, you got an Amazon driver who's assigned to the area, but he's one of those guys that uses his personal car. You see that car over and over again. In an operational sense, we're going to identify that we're seeing the same thing over and over again. And rather than going the rational route of, or what's this guy doing in the neighborhood? And it could be something as simple as he's an Amazon driver. We start looking for another reason. And we start deep diving into the internet on what is this reason this person is now here. And the next thing you know, it's turned into something entirely different. And a lot of that, when you're talking about this community, our training is great. We're well trained. Our situational awareness is extremely high. And then you add in the potential for paranoia to develop. And we're also a lot of times researchers, we want to find the meaning behind what's going on here, but we connect it to the wrong meaning. And that happens out of our PTSD and a traumatic brain injury. And then, a lot of times in those situations, when we're not totally far gone, we do recognize, oh man, I'm going down rabbit holes. And we'll talk to, another person about that and recenter ourselves. But if we're isolating and we don't have a support structure, or we're afraid to reach out to a support structure because we're still active in those communities. I know me, myself, when I was going through my issues with drinking, initially I was afraid. I was afraid to reach out. I mean, here I am, an operational police officer still out there in a major city. And I was scared that what I was going through was going to derail my entire career. And it ended up not. It ended up actually enhancing my career once I got the treatment I needed. But coming forward was the key to get that treatment and getting it in a healthy way.
And that's a stigma that we keep talking about, right?
Or coming forward, it holds you back. But let me ask you this: you're talking about these people that are going through this sort of crisis, going online. Now you can go online, and I'm just using this medically, and maybe look at something from the New England Journal of Medicine, but they. Correct me if I'm wrong, tend to gravitate more towards the conspiracy type theories.
Right.
In preparing for this show, I went out and searched a lot of websites, a lot of podcasts, a lot of commentators. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of people going down some serious conspiracy roads, if you will, over Matthew's incident. And it seems like a lot of service members fall into the category. There's a lot of distrust in government.
Understand.
Medical care. Can you share some intel on that with mindset and how our brothers and sisters are feeling about that?
Probably most of us have some level of a resentment towards the government because we put our lives on the line. A lot of times for people that have never worn a uniform. and we recognize that as time goes on. The healthy outlook on that is we really have to try to understand that, one, we're not alone. There's a lot of us that did this work and we can help each other. And the second thing is we are blessed that we're in a country that we can talk about this. We can talk about this. We can talk about the fact that, we do have some distrust towards the government and we do want to go out there and get some help. There's many countries out there that, if a prior military member or police officer started talking about the government, they would just disappear. And thank God we're not in one of those countries. We're in a country where, we did put the uniform on and fight for people's rights, and we also have those rights. And that gives us the right to cautiously and scientifically question what are we looking at here in all these different situations. So I think the discussion of what happened there is a good discussion. I really do think it's a good discussion. But we do have to be careful that we don't go down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories. I can tell you from my own experience within the work I do with first responders and veterans, I've seen situations not as publicized or not as disastrous as this one, but they could have been very, very easily. And in those situations, one, for example, it was a veteran and he was experimenting with kratom, which is an herb that's called a gray drug. It's sold in gas stations for anxiety, which can also cause paranoid delusions. And he started taking these and had a very, very tough go and a lot of paranoia. We were able to kind of surround him emotionally and get him some help. And thankfully, we could pull him out of that. But unchecked and isolated, he was headed towards absolute disaster. And then I saw another one that similar, messing around with substances, lost touch with reality, and he did not make it out the other end. He ended up committing suicide. And that's where that disconnection can really, really become dangerous. And a lot of the things that they were both talking about during these things are very similar. It comes from, we have a training and education and experience that's really based in what's actually going on around the world. And we're in positions to know what's actually happening. But then we start mixing in substances with PTSD and TBI. And the next thing we know, those things that are 100% real, we are now connecting to something else. And that's where that paranoia comes into play. Again, most paranoia is based in something that's real that we're connecting to something that we're creating in our mind. And then when they get together, disaster.
I'm keying into a couple of the terms you use and they jump out at me. Surround him emotionally. I can visualize that and how you want to help this person. Much like you would take down somebody in an arrest, where you want to be as calm with them, but they're in crisis.
Yeah.
Surround them, talk to them, but emotionally, and get them the help. That jumped out at me. But you can understand what they're going through based on the need to have to surround them, because you're right. There is some truth always to what a person may be thinking, right? But then if you add certain elements to it, to that stew, and the pot's going to overflow, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Ben, I got two questions, right? How do I deal with paranoia?
One of the best treatments for paranoia is talking with one a professional and two culturally competent peers that are healthy as well, especially from our world. We are looking for those who have been in some element of something similar to us, but they're healthy examples. And that's what we're really seeing works, is getting vets and first responders around other vets and first responders that are healthy. We are really pack animals. We do everything we do in the first responder and veteran world that we're successful at, we do as a team. And we need to recover as a team from the operations that we work on. So getting around other healthy veterans and being careful not to end up around unhealthy ones, because that can happen very easily. That can happen very, very easily, where, I have similarity with this guy. He likes to hang out in the bar all night. And next thing you know, you're palling around, but you're both living very unhealthy lifestyles. But you're hanging on that commonality and camaraderie. We need to find that same thing on the healthy side. And it exists out there. There's a lot of support groups out there, a lot of wellness groups. And the VA is really starting to pay attention to this as well, getting that peer side really, really active. Because who better to guide us than those that have been there before us?
That's right.
Equally, how do I address my PTSD?
Very similar. Very similar. Again, now with the PTSD side of things, it is essential for connectedness. It's essential to begin the work, to start to help that heal and to help the person see that trauma from a different perspective, a growing perspective. And again, that's not to say that the psychiatry route of this, which is medications for anxieties and things like that, that can be extremely helpful. That can be extremely helpful in concert with the psychological approach as well. But that's where, again, I really caution our first responders and veterans that if you're Googling and you see, the magic pill is microdosing of this or that, and I can order this stuff from this website, and you just start taking it, disaster could happen. And it has happened. It has happened. I'll put it this way. If you have high blood pressure, we don't go down to the 7-Eleven to buy our blood pressure medication.
That's right.
We go to the doctor for it. Same thing with our PTSD and our anxiety. Let's not try to, buy something we saw on the internet that's going to change our brain chemistry, because the result can be catastrophic.
Everything I've ever read about microdosing or anything involving psychedelic treatment or treatment of mental health issues or emotional health issues with psychedelics has always pointed to the fact that you must be in a controlled environment.
Mm-hmm.
It must be done by highly, highly professional, highly certified individuals with a support group to take care of those patients.
I'm in agreement with you. It needs to be done very carefully. And the scientific papers that are out there, the studies that are out there, they have one thing in common. These are treatment-resistant individuals where they've tried everything else and it was an extremely controlled environment for a long period of time. And that's, I think, the message we have to really make sure that the veteran and first responder community understands, that if you're buying this stuff online, microdosing mushrooms and all this stuff, you're playing with fire.
Don't do it. Don't do it, man. Don't do it. Plain and simple. Don't take it.
I mean, listen, the New England Journal of Medicine or one of the other major medical forums basically said it was 60 to 70% of self-diagnosis, and this is medically now, not psychological, but is the wrong one. Yeah. And so it's not even a coin flip. It's worse. I mean, the odds, and you have to think tenfold worse for anything that has to deal with any psychological issues or post-traumatic stress disorder. Mm-hmm. It'll be much, much higher than 60, 70% wrong. You'd have to think. And as you said, you're going down a really, really bad path. And you hit it spot on with any sort of medication. You know, you get it online instead of through a doctor or a legitimate doctor's prescription. And a couple weeks later, you hear stuff coming out on the air. Don't be taking that. It's really bad for you. It's not what is cut out. There's a reason why you have medical professionals.
So true.
Yeah.
True. So for anybody out there suffering or with having suicide ideations, please do not hesitate to call the national hotline. There are people there to answer your calls. Ben, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, where can they do so?
The best way to get a hold of me is just shoot me an email. It's Iobst at bticonsultingservice.com. And you're more than welcome to email me, especially if you're a veteran or a first responder that is looking for help. I may not be familiar with your region, but I can help you guide you a little bit to try to get some assistance.
Yeah, and you've also started a podcast. Tell us a little bit about that, because you are going to be collaborating with Bets and Badges on our website.
Absolutely.
BetsandBadges.com. On our blog side, you'll be able to provide modules for tips on mental health and wellness. Tell us a little bit about it.
So we started a podcast called Tribe of the Restored Warriors. it kind of comes out a little bit of, we're a tribe. There's been publications about that, and finding the tribe that you belong to. And so we named it Tribe of the Restored Warriors, because that's what we're working towards. We're working towards restoration of our lives. And what we try to do within the podcast is we try to keep them pretty short. Most of them are 5 to 6 minutes long. And the aim there is that you're having a bad day or you need a little pick-me-up during the day. We have some common sense tips on there towards mental wellness, towards topics like substance use disorder. And then we do have a couple longer ones. And those are more aimed at specifics, like talking about resiliency. And then we recently did an interview with a paramedic because we feel it's important that the differences. I mean, there's so much similarity, in all the first responder and veteran jobs, but there are some differences. So talking a little bit about, from the paramedic's perspective, how they recover and the wellness tips that they specifically have individually. But if someone wanted to listen to it, it's on Spotify. It's Tribe of the Restored Warriors. And we'll be doing a lot of work with Vets and Badges going forward because this is really important work, and we have to get the word out there to take care of one another.
And in addition to being on Spotify, it will be on vetsandbadges.com on the blog section coming in the next 2 weeks.
Very good.
Any last words here, David?
It's just it's just like we said at the beginning, just incredibly important. I mean, the information Ben has, what he puts out, something else he said about, and we know this quote from before, the temporary, permanent solution to a temporary problem. But temporary problem is optimistic.
Mm.
If you think about it, there's help out there. There's help, and to guide somebody to find it, show them how to get it. You're on a path to something better. But really, that's where it starts.
Yeah, and for anybody out there, just again for context, you have 3 individuals here that we walked the walk. We faced the dangers. We faced our own demons, and that's why we're doing this. That's why we're coming to you and showing the fact that we are not perfect. We have colleagues, many colleagues, who are not just have overcome their battles, but also helping others. The community is big, and we want to help each other. Ben, any last words?
You just hit it all on the head. Take care of one another. And it's not weak to get help. If we have a broken knee and we go and try to go to the gym with that, it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? It's not weak to go to the doctor and get some x-rays and get some PT. Let's try to develop that same mentality for our mental health, because it really is the same thing. We have some injuries that need to heal, and it's not weakness, it's strength.
So for those of you that want to find us, besides communitynewspapers.com, you can find us on all social media platforms, the major ones, that is, under Vets and Badges or vetsandbadges.com. Also, we ask everyone to take a moment, a couple seconds, to like our page, like the show, subscribe to us. It's going to help us a lot. Visit us on Spotify. We need some help on that channel. We got to grow, get the information out to the Miami Community Newspaper team. Grant Michael Miller, Rachel Brummage, behind the scenes. Thank you to you, the audience. And Ben, we can't do this without you. Drop us a line. Let us know what you'd like to hear from us. Ben, we look forward to speaking and dealing with you and collaborating with you for a long time moving forward. Stay safe, brother.